Welcome to Neurodivergent Faith, a podcast to help you navigate the beautiful and complicated intersection of neurodivergence and Christian faith and practice. My name's Josh Davis. I'm autistic, ADHD, a spiritual director, and an ordained pastor. And I'm delighted to have you join me as we explore the unique ways neurodivergent people experience God, worship, community, and scripture, along with special interests, sensory and attention differences, social and communication challenges, and much more. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back. So glad you've joined us today. Today, I'm excited to have a special guest with us. We're going to get to hear some of his story and some of how he processes the world and creativity and how God has been at work in his faith journey as well. So Daniel Curtis, I want to welcome you to Neurodivergent Faith and would love for you to tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here. And yeah, I hail from South Wales. So in the UK, we're having a very kind of warm summer. So, everything's just a little bit more hot at the moment. And you know what? It's one of those things as well, this time of year. It reminds you of, I think when people start to relax, we were talking about this off air, some people start to relax, but my busy brain keeps going,
Mm-hmm.
it keeps going, and it's very insistent on getting lots of things done. So yes, this is a season that I struggle with a little bit. So, maybe we'll get into that as well. But yeah, I am a composer, a speaker. I also do a lot of work around neurodivergence. I go into businesses and companies and talk to them about identity, about who they are, both as a company, but also individuals. I am a person who cares about people, being the most authentic, the most purposeful version of themselves. I want people to genuinely thrive in their lives and to drop the labels that have been attached to them. So a lot of my work is story-based, generally my own stories or stories that I have found to have a profound impact on me. I come at everything from the basis of being a flawed human being myself, someone who has genuinely learned the hard way, has no magic tools or strategies, but has found some things that have helped enormously. Yes, I try to be real and truthful. So my work, whether I'm writing music or writing words or speaking to people, all comes from that basis.
That's beautiful. And even as you introduce yourself, I can already feel so much resonance with you and with the nature and mission of this podcast, which is to help people live their most authentic and purposeful lives, just as you said, and for the thriving of people. That's what we're here for. And we're having these conversations to help people imagine what their most authentic and purposeful life might look like and how it might be different from the norms that they were handed or the expectations that have been put on them or even what they might mistakenly think about themselves and their own identity. So thanks for being with us. And before we jump into neurodivergence, which is one of the themes of this podcast, I'd love to hear just a little bit more about Daniel. What are some of the threads that have always been woven through your life?
Music is certainly one of them. It is been a constant friend. It is a friend. It has got me through many, many things. I have been bullied a lot through my life. That has left scars, unquestionable. I have a massive abandonment complex and that is quite, taken a lot of time to come to terms with. Things, with my father in particular, not being around. I want desperately to help people. And I put a lot of pressure on myself to do that, to try and turn up for people. And that can sometimes burn me out. It can frustrate me and make me incredibly upset and despondent when I feel I'm not doing enough or not driving my purpose enough. I am a mixed bag of many things, but what I've tried to do desperately in my life is, well, my life of late is to try not to attach myself to any kind of particular labels or anything, and try to just see it that this is the woven fabric of who I am, with, yes, lots of complex themes. And I'm sure we'll explore some of them.
Yes, one of the questions that you like to ask, and it's just such a profound question, and I want to pose it to you today, which is, who were you before the world told you who to be? How would you answer that question that you often ask other people?
I think there is no doubt in my mind when it comes to myself. I was brought up, you see, a generation removed. I was brought up with my grandparents.
Hmm.
So I've always been around adults my whole life. I've always been brought up with traditional values. I was brought up in a way that you do nice things for the person next to you. You
Hmm.
look after people around you. I believe that I am a person who really values community, values people and what they can contribute. So when I look at myself in the mirror and I think, who are you really? What are you? Are you just floating through this life? Do you have a purpose? I believe my purpose is to try and bring people together.
Hmm.
I believe I am that person in whatever capacity I want to bring people together. But I am a very vulnerable person myself.
Hmm.
I recognize that. And the truth is, abandonment and those things can have a profound effect on you very, very early in your life.
Absolutely.
Before I ever had a chance to not have those issues, if you see what I mean.
Mhm.
And I think I'm just a kid who wants to listen to music and play music and feel like I'm respected, that I have a purpose, that I have somewhere to be, something to do.
Mhm.
And when I strip my life back, those are the things that really matter to me,
Mm.
whatever format that is. I like to be with people, to help people, and that is part of the fabric of my DNA. It
Mm.
really is. And the world has done lots of things to try and get in the way of many of the things I've wanted to do, whether it's people telling me not to do it, or people ignoring me, or making me feel less than I am. But I think fundamentally I'm just that kid who had aspirations to listen and play music and have friends and be respected and play their part in a community. That's who I think I am. That's who I believe I am.
Thank you for putting that into words. And I honor that kid who just wants to play music and connect with others and help others connect and have a place to belong. That's really beautiful and really relatable. I myself see those as threads through my life. Music has been a profound healing and sustaining thread through my life. And then a desire to connect with others and to bring others together in various ways and forms. So I really resonate with that. You mentioned just now, and you've written openly about being bullied and struggling with self-doubt. How did those experiences shape the story you believed about yourself? Because many of our listeners have had similar experiences, and many of our listeners are trying to untangle from the shame that they had heaped on them through bullies or other negative things that they experienced growing up. So, how did those experiences shape the story you believed about who Daniel is?
There's two parts to this. There is part one, which is entirely about me. So, what did I do at that time in my life? Now, I had a mop of curly ginger hair, okay? I was not a cool kid. I wasn't. I had big Chris Reeve glasses, the Clark Kent kind. I
Hmm.
wanted to be like Superman. So being a generation removed as well. So being, brought up with my grandparents, I had old values. I listened to old music.
Sure.
That made me a walking target.
Oh,
So all of those things, which were all good things, all of the things being brought up in a particular way made me different.
yeah.
I was different. I see that in myself. I obviously had ADHD and I wasn't concentrating very well. I was twitchy, tapping things, probably wiggling my leg. I was socially awkward. So there are things that were about me.
Hmm.
Then there's the other side, which is obviously the way that the world looks upon you.
Right.
Everybody at heart wants acceptance. One of the easiest ways to gain acceptance or to gain favor is to reduce somebody else. It's
Right.
always been the case. I look back at those times. I was genuinely distraught.
Mm.
I was more than sad. I was physically hurting. I took a third of a school year off with stomach pains that were entirely from the fact that I felt horrific.
Hmm.
I felt less than grotesque. I thought I was the most disgusting, pathetic creature that ever did walk this world.
Oh, yeah.
People told me I was vile, disgusting, gross, just like, why are you even here?
Mm.
I took those all to heart. I remember the freckles and they'd come out in the summertime. And I remember getting talcum powder and putting that on my face to try and mask some of these freckles. I mean, it's so ridiculous, so outrageous.
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, what is it that I'm supposed to do? But there was nothing. I was a target because I was different.
Mm.
I had nothing to offer in terms of social capital. And I went home all the way through primary school and secondary school thinking I was disgusting,
Mm.
that I didn't deserve anything. And I would sit there at night thinking, I just don't want to go tomorrow. I can't go through this again.
Mhm.
I was hurting. It's profoundly hurting. I was never brave enough to kill myself. I, you know, I wouldn't have done it to the people around me, but I didn't have you know, didn't have that in me anyway.
Sure.
And, but there were times where I wished I wasn't here.
Right.
I genuinely did not want to be on this planet.
Mhm.
I felt like the biggest misfit ever existed. And if that many people thought that I was that, why would it not be true?
Mm.
I had no self esteem. I just lived. And I was scared, frightened every single day of my life, uh, terrified.
Mm.
And you see, my father, who I had nothing to do with, he was the opposite of this. My father was the cool kid, musically gifted, sporting success, and there was no messing with him. He was the coolest kid in school, get any lady that he wanted, you know, he was the opposite of what I was.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, life works like that sometimes. In that the people that you need are not there for you, and that contributed enormously. But it's taken me most of my life to realize the impact that that actually had. My grandparents were incredible. I was treated incredibly. But the impact of having a father who, essentially didn't want to know you goes deep.
Yeah.
It goes deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for putting some words to that because even as I'm imagining you as an elementary school student, just the tremendous burden that you were carrying and how you were trying to make sense of all of those things. And then even how you tried to fix parts of you that God actually created, like those freckles, for example. That's part of God's creative design, I believe. And you realized that other people thought those were disgusting or weird or whatever. And so you did what you could to try to hide those or fix them. Looking back, were there other parts of your personality or the way that you were that you tried to fix, even though maybe God was never asking you to change those things?
100%. Yeah. I remember being in primary school, so we're going to elementary school here in the States terms, and there were auditions for Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted to be in that show. I desperately wanted to be in that show. Now, it was not an option. You had to audition. There was no getting away from this. And I remember going into the hall, I can still see it now, and everyone was in the hall. And the idea was that they put Any Dream Will Do on, everyone had to learn it, and everyone was to sing it at the same time, whilst the teachers walked along in rows and selected the people to go through to the next part.
I see.
I went in thinking, I just want to do this. And then I heard all of the boys in particular go, oh, this is pathetic. I don't want to do this. Yeah, this is just like, who wants to do this? So I thought to myself, well, I don't want to do it then
Mm,
because this is going to make things worse.
right.
So as they walked past me, I was like, I wore my coat with golden lining, just the worst thing I could possibly come up with.
Yeah, you threw the audition.
Absolutely tanked it. And I could sing that Any Dream Will Do very beautifully. And I tanked it
Hmm.
to make sure that I was not in that production.
Hmm.
So I made a decision pretty much all the way through school to just walk away from music, to not have anything to do with it, including having a teacher. I remember being in a music lesson and there were keyboards all around the room. And the idea is you went in and you selected a keyboard, put the headphones on. There was a piece of paper with a number pattern. The numbers were also on the keys. So you press the numbers and it made a tune, whatever the famous tune was. That was the aim. So I did that for 5, 10 minutes and got a bit fed up, as I used to do, and started making up my own tune. Teacher comes over, takes my headphones off, unplugs presses the keyboard off, tells me in no uncertain terms, Daniel, music is not for you.
Wow.
Spitting distance, right in the eyes. Very terrifying teacher. I'm sure she was perfectly nice, but she scared me anyway, put it that way. And she told me music was not for me. I stopped piano lessons. I retreated. But music was run too deep with me.
Hmm.
But yeah, that teacher told me, forget it, kid. This is not for you. And you know what? I never took part in a music lesson. I just sat there pretty much and when I could drop music, I did. I seem to remember it was only year 7, 8, and 9, I think, maybe just year 7 and 8. But the second I could get rid of music, I got rid of it. Didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't even want to participate. So I just hide in a corner, basically. So this thing which really mattered to me, I did everything. And people helped as well to ensure that I, basically felt abnormal there as well. So yeah, that hurt. That really hurt from
Of
that
course.
teacher.
And as I'm hearing you talk, it's fascinating to me because when you introduced yourself here on the podcast, one of the first things you said was, I'm a composer.
Yeah.
And I picture that younger version of Daniel going into the keyboard lab, picking a keyboard and getting bored because you have a busy creative brain, right? That you got bored with just following the numbers and creating something that had already existed and was kind of old hat. And you were experimenting and you were composing in that moment. And yet that was the very thing that cued the teacher to say, music is not for you. And I think oftentimes we can have these rigid boxes around what a gifting looks like, for example. And so if the rigid box says to be a good musician, you have to follow all the rules and you have to be able to sit still for a really long time and you have to, XYZ, then people like you don't fit in that box. And we can easily assume, oh, Daniel is not a musician, but music was in you and you couldn't escape it. And now, all these years later, here you are, part of your work, your life's work is to compose music.
And I remember the day that I received a video from Sir Paul McCartney where he'd opened my World Mental Health Day project, launched in Times Square, with the words, "All we need is love," changing, one of his most famous lyrics, "Just for me," playing the opening chord of a song that I wrote. And you think, yeah, maybe that wasn't true back then. Maybe that statement, the music wasn't for me. Maybe that was slightly off. And listen, fundamentally, no teacher should ever say anything like that to any child.
Correct.
No person should ever say anything like that. I understand the stresses and demands of teaching. Teachers say things sometimes out of frustration, having a bad day. And, most of the time, I have found teachers to genuinely want the best for kids. The world gets in their way, they get bogged down with paperwork and pressure, and it changes them as much as it changes the children. It's a knock-on effect.
Sure.
I hold no animosity towards that teacher. I'm sure she never thought about it ever again in her entire life. But that is the problem with words. A moment on someone's lips and it can attach itself to the innermost part of your soul.
Mhm.
So we have a responsibility with our words and our actions. And as I said, I can't even remember her name, but I remember what she said. And I get to tell that story. And I think it's a powerful one. And it represents a moment in my life of genuine distress because it was like someone took the only thing I had. It was the all I had.
Mhm.
Apart from the love of my grandparents and my family, the one thing that I thought I did have was music, and they tried to take it away.
Mhm. How sad for you, and also how sad and ironic for that teacher that because of the lens she was looking at you through, she couldn't see that this child was actually going to go on to write a song that Sir Paul McCartney would sing the opening line to. Like, that is quite the story arc, I will say. Let's fast forward a little bit to adulthood. If I'm not mistaken, you received an ADD diagnosis later in your life. Is that correct? And if so, what did that explain for you, or how did that maybe make sense of some of the things you had experienced?
Okay. So I can either give you the really truthful version or I can give you the nice version.
No, I
What
want
would you
the
like?
truthful version, of course.
Okay. Okay. I knew you'd say that. But here it is then. I went to see a fantastic psychiatrist. Incredible. And when I walked into that, well, I didn't walk in. It was during COVID, and no one was going anywhere. But
Sure.
when I got onto the computer and I sat down, I I knew what I felt through my entire life. But she said to me very clearly, look, you've already done this test, haven't you? You've done it at home. You know exactly what is required. You know, so why are you here? And I was like, well, I want to understand myself better. Yeah, but you already know the answer. So that's not it. Why are you here? I said, well, my son's received an ADHD and autism diagnosis, and I really want to understand him better. Yeah, but you already know that too. Why are you here? I said, I think maybe the truth is I want someone to tell me that, that I'm not a complete and utter lunatic, that I've made all this stuff up. She said, listen to me. She said, 99% of the time, I won't be as honest as I'm about to be with you. She said, I'm happy to go through the diagnosis with you, and we'll do that. But at the end of this, I'm going to tell you something, and I'm going to tell you very straight. Like she said, right now, you've got a very high IQ. You are an actor. She said, it must be incredibly exhausting for you. People go on stage, they come off stage, they don't go home on the train still singing Les Mis. They're not singing One Day More on the train after the show's done.
Right.
You are just performing all day.
All the time.
She said, stop it. Stop it now.
Wow.
So I was like, okay. She said, no, I'm not messing about. Stop it. She said, I've seen it all before. There is nothing you can, I've seen it. You're not bluffing me. I see through you. So I was like, right, okay. So we did the diagnosis, and yes, it came out, having the diagnosis, and the fact that I had ADD. She said, I'm going to give you two paths here, and it's up to you which one you take. Path one, go home, tell everybody you got the diagnosis, then go and make excuses for your entire life. Every time you feel stressed, blame it. Every time in your life you felt confused, annoyed, whatever, blame it. Let it define who you are. And feel sorry for yourself and all of those things. She said, all acceptable. That's path one. Or path two. She said, it's more of an unwalked path. She said, you can go out of here. You can start studying and find loads of tools and strategies that can help you in your life. She said, I don't have neurodiversity, but there are times where I'm stood at the top of an escalator going down to the tube, and the person in front of me is doing my head in so much that I think, do you know what? I might just push him down the stairs. She said, but I don't. I don't do that. She said, I have control over that, and you have a control over how you react. So go and find tools and strategies that can help you. Go and help other people. Go and genuinely use this information for the positive, or go let it define you. The choice is yours, and you are too smart to just walk out of here and let it define you. And that's on you. My job's done. Goodbye.
Wow. I've never heard of a story like that before. And even as you're recounting it, I'm imagining this woman, and I just am feeling so strongly like she has the voice and heart of a prophet as she's speaking to you. She's calling you up and into more of who you are. And she's also shooting very straight with you.
This woman knew I was coming in there thinking I had all the answers. I'd already worked it all out.
Mhm.
And she thought, I truly believe that the best thing she could ever do for me was to tell me that I was essentially full of crap, that I was bluffing myself, bluffing the world, that, sometimes you just need to be told. And I truly believe she doesn't speak to many people like that.
Mhm.
but she told me what I needed. And it motivated me to take the other option, you know? But this is a woman with, 30 plus years of experience of doing this.
Mhm.
And she'd seen people like me before. She'd walked this before and gone, I'm going to take a chance. And in some ways, she changed my life.
Mhm.
So I needed to hear her message. And it was way more powerful than getting a diagnosis.
I can feel that even as you share it. Let's kind of move sideways just a little bit because connected to what you were just talking about, bluffing the world and constantly performing, you now work in a very creative profession, and you are composing, you are presenting in front of people all the time. I'm curious, how has your creativity become less about proving yourself or performing or putting on airs or putting or bluffing and more about actually revealing yourself?
So this is this is something that I constantly work at. I think there are a couple of things here. Number one, it is very easy, especially when you're younger, to want to give a glossy performance.
Absolutely.
Music is the best way to describe this. You can play all the notes right, but a composer never imagined a song, just played with all the notes, just dead on right,
Mhm.
without the heart,
Right.
the performance, the soul, the interpretation. A composer does not want their work performed just note by note by note. It took me years to realize that. The truth is, and this is hard for me to admit, and I've done a lot of incredible projects with a lot of incredible people. I have reached millions of people with World Mental Health Day messages.
Mhm.
And that gives me genuine satisfaction that I did something to help. But it also leaves me very empty the day after. So I decided that my life had to become more than a one project once a year, or it's all about that one release day and then it's gone.
Mhm.
How can I help or do things that have some impact each day,
Mm.
every day? How do I stop standing behind the mountain that is someone like Sir Paul McCartney? How do I step forward in front of the mountain and say, yeah, I'm not Sir Paul McCartney? And yeah, this message is not going to reach anywhere near the amount of people that it would with his incredible heartfelt sincerity that he gave me and countless other people did in contributing to projects.
Mhm.
But I have to be more than standing behind creating things, but standing behind other people,
Mm.
despite how great and phenomenal they are. And I'm not saying I'll never make one of those projects ever again,
Sure.
but I have no intention at the moment. But who knows? Something will happen, I'm sure, and will spur me to create something. But I desperately want to do more in my own skin.
Mm.
I want to stop hiding in the shadows of giants. I want to have a chance to belong for my own message. There's stuff inside of me that I feel compelled to do,
Mm.
and I'm trying my very best to be as vulnerable and authentic as I can, and that requires me having the unique opportunity to come on and speak to your good self and tell these stories not in a fluffy way,
Mhm.
but in a very real and honest way. That every time I say them, make me squirm just a little bit inside
Hmm.
because it takes genuine reflection and the ability to look at oneself in a through a lens that is not always comfortable.
That requires a lot of courage, and it is a vulnerable thing. And every once in a while in an episode, I'll pause and sort of speak to those who are listening. And I want to do that right now to say, can you just stop for a second and imagine, is there something in your life that you could be a little less glossy about and a little more honest and real, even if it makes your insides squirm just a little bit? Is there something? Maybe you won't do that on social media or in front of the whole world, but maybe in front of a trusted friend or loved one. Is there a way that you could be more honestly yourself and inhabit the skin that you're in, as Daniel was just talking about? So I want to just give you a second to think about that. Connected to that, Daniel, I've noticed part of the way my brain is wired, I easily spot patterns and connections. Um, and I've noticed that so many neurodivergent people, especially those who are late diagnosed, spend so much of our time apologizing for things. I'm sorry. I'm not staying on topic. I'm sorry. This might not make sense. I'm sorry that I was 5 minutes late. I'm sorry I forgot your birthday for the 17th year in a row. I'm sorry, whatever the case might be, right? I'm curious, what's something that you've stopped apologizing for?
I think I have stopped apologizing definitely for wanting more of myself.
Mm,
I have stopped apologizing for that.
mm,
I will give you an example. So there is a singer that I know. He's done very good things. And this isn't Paul McCartney or anybody like that.
sure.
This is someone who's, done very well professionally, but, is not a superstar or anything like that. But I remember going around his house and he'd asked me to come and I sat on his sofa and he said, look, I need your help with X, Y, and Z, mainly about publicity and getting a project out into the world. I thought I was there because there was some respect for what I had managed to do with certain projects.
Mhm.
And he said to me one of the most hurtful comments that anyone ever landed, which was, see, the thing with you, you're like a used car salesman. You just keep going, you know, wear people down. Now, I am not, people sell used cars and they do it very well. And this isn't about these, those wonderful people. But I'm imagining Matilda's father here. This is what was in his head. Matilda's father from Roald Dahl's imagination played expertly, in the movie. And that kind of slimy kind of thief who was trying to one up everybody. That's what he meant. And I looked at him horrified. He was like, I don't mean it like that. You don't go along the normal path. I said to him, look, I worked really hard on this. Yeah, yeah, but you don't go along the normal path and you do things differently. And I should have said the truth. I work really hard. I've spent hours and hours of my life. I have poured every penny virtually that I've got, every ounce of energy. I have worked my socks off. I have given everything and I care passionately about this. But I let him reduce me. I stopped pushing back
Mm.
and accepted that. And yeah. I know what he meant. I know what he meant to this day. And I know that that is a reflection of many people that I've had in my life. And again, I don't blame him for his comments, but I would like to believe that one day he looks and thinks, yeah, that wasn't true, was it? But I have no intention of spending any more time other than telling the story, which has helped people to understand a particular thing about labels. But it burnt a hole in my soul. It punctured me and it reduced me to nothing. That is one of the things I've tried to do now, is to say, no, I worked really hard on this. I've tried really hard. And I may not be up to your standards. Maybe I'm not operating in the way you would, but this is the way I've tried to do it. And it's been with heart and pure graft. And if that's not good enough for you, on your bike, kid.
I love that, being honest and bringing forward the truth about the reality that you have lived and experienced that others might not see from the outside looking in, or they might have their own judgments or expectations or whatever the case might be. But to bring your own perspective and lived reality to the table and to not just go along with what someone else says from a place of ignorance or a place of a very limited perspective that they might have on your life. I hear that as a thread running through our conversation today. We've only got a few more minutes, but a couple of questions. In a minute, I'd like to find out if you've got any creative projects you're working on and how people can get a hold of you or stay in touch with you if they'd like to. But before that, what would you say to someone listening who wonders whether there's room in God's kingdom for someone who doesn't fit the mold, for someone who has been told by others that they don't belong or that they're never going to amount to anything in a particular field that they may even be very passionate about? What would you say to someone like that that might be listening today?
My favorite quote from the Bible is Matthew 7:7, seek and ye shall find. It is profound. Jesus said it himself. You have to seek your life. The rest of that particular message, you have to knock, you know? You knock, and it will be opened unto you. But you have to knock, you have to seek, you have to ask.
Mm.
You have to do that, not just in relation to God, but also in relation to yourself. You have to go looking at who you are, what you value, to ask yourself better questions. What makes me feel fulfilled? What environments make me shut down? What environments make me become the person that I want to be? What people in my life lift me up? What people in my life make me feel less than I am? How do I want the rest of my life to look? The one thing I can assure you, beyond any message I ever could, is that God loves you, that you are, without question, the greatest, most beautiful person that God ever created, because that's the way he looked at everybody. We deserve to live in a world full of God's grace. And we will never live up to his standards. We'll never live up to them because we are flawed. But we are meant to see that. We're meant to walk down a path where we repent, where we try to do better. We are not perfect. We are flawed. There are things that are going to shake us, test us, break us. But it's all about the response. But God thinks you're beautiful. You were put on this earth to do great things. And nobody has any right to prevent God's wishes from coming true. No one has a right to divert your journey. And I assure you, You have the right, the same right as anybody else to succeed and achieve your dreams. And I hope you see the incredible things that you do offer to this world and have the true belief that you deserve more than at times people in the world has reduced you to. There's so much inside you which is yet to come out and yet to flourish. But it's there. Keep asking questions because seek and ye shall find.
Thank you. You were preaching to me today. I didn't expect it, but as you shared those words from Matthew 7, um, I've been asking some of those questions that you kind of shared in a litany after that, and I've found some of the things that I am deeply passionate about doing, um, and yet I really still struggle with asking for a lot of reasons connected to my own story. But even as you were speaking today, that went deep into my own heart. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door will be open. Ask and you will receive. I'm in the middle
Very
right
important.
of a crazy dream that I've had for years, but it's finally, finally investing time and energy into it. I'm in the middle of writing a Broadway style musical. I'm almost through with Act Two currently, and I have every dream that this could be very beautiful and enjoyed by a lot of people, but the thought of writing it is delightful. The thought of pitching it to someone else once it's written, that's where I want to shut down. But today I'm receiving your words as spoken to me as well.
This one comes from Lord Lloyd Webber himself. He says that if you write something and you put it on in any capacity, if people enjoy it, it will be seen again.
Mm.
People will want to see it again. Not every single show is destined for Broadway. Some of the most successful shows of all time have been mass successes off Broadway before they ever reached anywhere. And The Little Shop of Horrors is a perfect example.
Yeah,
And when it went to Broadway, it was strange because it was it didn't work for a while. They've had to reshake that many times, but it was made for something far smaller, but it was made with heart.
yeah,
The moment you start becoming or start writing in a way to try and please other people, you are done. You stick true to your ambitions, your goals, what the way you see it. Work collaboratively um, with other people, but do not hide away from the message that you are trying to put across. Don't reduce yourself before anyone's even had a chance to
right,
look at it.
right. Yeah, thank you. Tell us as we close today, what creative projects are you imagining or working on that you'd like to share, if any? And also, how can people stay in touch with you or get in touch with you if they're interested?
So my book comes out in November called Who Were You Before the World Told You Who to Be? And it's a memoir. It's not an autobiography, but it contains lots of stories from my life, things I've learned, how I've learned them. We talk through the bullying, we talk through the good things as well. There's lots in there. That's my key project, that I'm really working on. I've got my own podcast, The Growth Time Machine, which is something that I enjoy doing. So www.danielcurtishq.com will put you onto the website, and there's stuff about the podcast, how to be on the podcast. All of those things are there. So, yeah, it'd be lovely to hear from people. I hope that people find something in what we've said tonight, Josh. But I appreciate you too, my friend. I look forward to seeing your success as well. And know that I'm only ever a message away if I can ever help. Or, you just want to moan one day because, the world's getting a bit, a bit tough or whatever. I'm here for you. So, you know where to find me.
Thank you. And the same is true for you. I'm cheering you on, and maybe after your book releases in November and I've had the chance to read it, maybe we can have you back on and talk about that a little bit more specifically. It's been delightful to have you, and I trust, fully trust that everybody who listens will take something away from our conversation today. So thank you for sharing so authentically and so generously.
My absolute privilege. You take care of yourself.
You too. Thanks for listening to this episode of Neurodivergent Faith. If you like what you heard, consider subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing this with someone who might need to hear it too. And as you continue to wrestle with faith and identity, remember, your unique brain is a part of God's creative genius. Whether it's the way you process scripture, engage with prayer, or connect with others, you are a reflection of the vast creativity of our Creator. May you trust that God knows you, delights in you, and is working in you exactly as you are. And may you know that you are not walking this journey alone. See you next time.